There were only 30 minutes left when the message appeared, flickering on the screen like a final warning or perhaps a beginning disguised as an emergency. You didn't know why it came to you, why the tone felt urgent, why the name attached to it, Elon Musk, felt both outrageous and strangely believable. But the words were clear: open this. It's about your life. And in those seconds, something inside you shifted, not out of fear, but out of a sudden clarity that maybe, just maybe, life had been asking you to open things for a long time, doors you ignored, opportunities you doubted, truths you postponed. The countdown wasn't a threat. It was a metaphor, the kind that shows up right before a person realizes they've been sleeping through their own potential. You never needed Musk's name to validate it. What woke you up was the sense that someone, somewhere, believed your life was far more important than the way you'd been treating it. The message didn't say this, but you felt it between every pulse of the timer. The idea that you were meant for more, capable of more, worthy of more. And for the first time in a long time, you paused, really paused, to listen to that inner tremble of possibility. Time didn't slow down, if anything, it sped up, like life itself was leaning forward, waiting to see what you would do with the next breath. And in that moment, you understood that the message wasn't from a billionaire or a celebrity or a figure on the global stage. It was from the universe using the loudest name it could grab to get your attention. It was a message you might have ignored if it came from anyone else. But now it had your full focus, and that meant everything. You stared at the words, feeling something stir in your chest, something fierce, something alive. You realized how many seconds of your life had slipped quietly through your fingers, lost to hesitation, lost to smallness, lost to waiting for the perfect moment that never comes. And here you were now, with a symbolic clock ticking, confronted with the truth that the only real deadline is the one you set by refusing to act. The world doesn't wait. Dreams don't wait. The future doesn't wait. But you have always been waiting for permission, validation, a sign. And maybe this was the final reminder that no sign would ever matter until you decided it did, so you opened the message. Not because of the name, not because of the countdown, but because something in those words mirrored a forgotten part of yourself. You felt the presence of all the versions of you that never got the chance to exist, the bold one, the daring one, the unstoppable one. They stood behind you like shadows, whispering that life wasn't meant to be survived, it was meant to be lived with the kind of intensity that leaves echoes behind you long after you've moved forward. The text inside wasn't a threat or cryptic instruction. It was a reflection, a mirror made of words. It told you that life had been trying to reach you for years, maybe decades, through small whispers and coincidences, through failures that were really directions and obstacles that were really lessons. It reminded you that you weren't born to drift in circles. You weren't born to remain half awake, half hopeful, half alive. You were born to build, to rise, to expand, to become something so powerful that your future self would look back and thank you for not letting fear win. And in that moment, you realized something profound. The countdown wasn't about time running out. It was about time beginning. You felt the words shaping themselves into something deeper, a challenge. A promise, a contract between who you are and who you could be. The message said that you were standing at the edge of two lives, the one you settled for and the one waiting for you. And your next decision would decide which one you lived. You could close the message and go back to the predictable patterns that kept you small. Or you could open your life the way you opened this text, with curiosity, courage, and the willingness to step into the unknown. The unknown wasn't your enemy. It was your birthplace. You felt your heartbeat pick up, the way it does when you're about to do something that matters. And the more you read, the more you understood that everything you want, every success, every transformation, every moment of pride, lives on the other side of discomfort. Every great life begins with a moment that feels like this, a sudden call, a strange nudge, an unexpected push. Sometimes it comes from a person. Sometimes from a situation. Today, it came disguised as Elon Musk telling you to open a message. But the real voice behind it was you. You read on, and the message became more personal. It spoke of the dreams you never mentioned to anyone. The ones you tucked away because they felt too big or too embarrassing or too impossible. It spoke of the nights you felt lost, the days you felt invisible, the moments you questioned if you had anything special inside you at all. And then it cut through all of that with a truth so sharp you felt it in your bones. The only limit you ever had was the one you believed in. You had believed in limits more than you believed in yourself. But not anymore. The countdown reached 27 minutes. You felt the urgency, but not in a pressured way, more like a rising energy calling you to act not later, but now. Because life is a chain reaction triggered by the smallest decision. And this decision, this moment of opening a message instead of ignoring it, was the start of a shift you could feel in your entire being. It told you that your life was not meant to be a repetition of yesterday. You were given imagination so you could design your future, not replay your past. And yet, for so long, you lived like your life was stuck on a loop, waiting for the world to change before you changed. But now you saw the truth. Waiting was the slowest kind of death. Action was the beginning of every miracle. The message reminded you that everyone who ever built something extraordinary had a moment like this, a moment when they were tired, uncertain, under pressure, overwhelmed, and yet they chose to move. They chose to try. They chose to believe that something inside them was stronger than the fear around them, and as you breathed in those words, you felt something awaken that had been sleeping far too long. The timer moved to 26 minutes. But instead of making you anxious, it made you aware of how many minutes in your life had passed without you ever truly being present inside them. You suddenly felt the weight of time not as pressure, but as proof that every moment ahead of you is still unwritten, untouched, unclaimed. And that realization sparked something electric inside you, the sense that you were standing at the threshold of a life you haven't even begun to taste. You kept reading. The message shifted from observation to instruction, but not in a commanding way. It spoke to you like someone who believed in your potential more than anyone ever had. It said that every human life contains a point where everything changes, not because the world intervenes, but because the person finally decides to intervene in their own destiny. And this was that point for you. It told you the truth nobody ever told you, that greatness isn't a talent, it's a decision. A decision to stand back up. A decision to keep moving. A decision to turn pain into power, doubt into fuel, dreams into plans. And you realized how many times you had waited for confidence before taking action, not knowing that confidence only appears after you take it. You felt the words pull you deeper, reminding you that extraordinary lives aren't built in comfort. They're built in the moments when you refuse to let fear dictate your future. They're built when you face the mirror and decide that the person staring back deserves more from the world, and more from themselves. The message spoke of resilience in a way you had never heard before. It described resilience not as toughness, not as pretending you're fine, but as the quiet, relentless belief that you can rebuild yourself as many times as necessary. It reminded you of every moment you thought you were breaking, when in reality you were reshaping. Every time you felt lost, you were actually being redirected. Every failure was not an ending, but an invitation to grow into a version of yourself you didn't yet have the strength to be. The timer slid to 24 minutes. You didn't even notice at first, because the words were no longer just on the screen, they were inside you, echoing through memories you tried to forget and hopes you tried to silence. And with each sentence, you felt your old limitations cracking, falling away, revealing something raw and powerful beneath the surface. You remembered the times you told yourself you weren't enough. Not smart enough, not talented enough, not lucky enough, not strong enough. But now the message exposed that smallness is a lie, one you learned from the world, not from your own truth. The real you, the one beneath fear and hesitation, was limitless. Maybe not in skill yet, maybe not in knowledge yet, but in potential, absolutely. And potential is the birthplace of everything that matters. The message pushed you gently, urging you to see the patterns you've been trapped in. The way you've been living to avoid mistakes instead of seeking growth. The way you've been surviving by staying inside boundaries that were too small for the size of your dreams. It showed you how you shrank yourself each time you accepted less than you deserved. How you dimmed your spark to make others comfortable. How you stayed silent in moments when your voice was meant to rise, but not anymore. You felt the shift in your chest, subtle but undeniable. A readiness. A willingness. A quiet strength that felt like it had been waiting behind a locked door, and this message was the key. 23 minutes. You began to understand that the countdown was symbolic of something far bigger, the life you've been postponing. It wasn't about time running out, it was about waking up before more time slipped away and used. It was about realizing that the world doesn't reward those who wait. It rewards those who act. The message spoke of energy, but not in the vague way people usually mention it. It described the kind of energy that surrounds a person who has decided to no longer sabotage their own future. The energy of someone who has cut ties with excuses. The energy of someone who rises not because circumstances are perfect, but because they refuse to let imperfection stop them. You felt yourself straightening. Breathing deeper, thinking clearer. You were no longer reading passively, you were absorbing, awakening, remembering the strength you forgot you had. The words told you that every person is given a moment where they are called to step out of their old identity. Some ignore it and stay trapped in a life they secretly resent. But others, those who change the trajectory of their existence, choose to answer the call, even if they're scared. Especially if they're scared, and that was you now. Right on the edge of transformation, the timer fell to 21 minutes, the message turned personal again. It spoke of the pain you carry, the disappointments, the self-blame, the heartbreaks you never fully healed from. But instead of telling you to forget them, it told you to use them. To turn your wounds into wisdom. To turn your scars into direction. To turn your struggles into the very reasons you will rise higher than you ever planned. Your past wasn't a burden. It was raw material, every moment of hurt was clay. Every failure was fire. Every setback was shaping you. And now you stood here as a beautifully imperfect, incredibly powerful, unfinished masterpiece. Not broken, becoming. 19 minutes remaining, you realized something else. You weren't afraid of running out of time. You were afraid of wasting the time you still had. But this message, this strange, dramatic, almost unbelievable message, felt like a line drawn in the sand. A moment telling you that the version of you who lived in hesitation was no longer welcome in the future you're about to create, and for the first time in a very long time, you felt a spark that was stronger than fear. You felt hope, not the soft kind. The fierce kind. The kind that sits in your chest like a rising sun, burning away excuses, burning away doubt, burning away every limitation you previously accepted. You are changing. Even now, even while reading, 19 minutes became 18, but time no longer felt threatening. It felt alive, pulsing, urging you to rise into the person you were always meant to be. You could feel something shifting beneath the surface of your thoughts. Like new roots forming, like clarity finally breaking through the soil of all your doubts. It wasn't panic anymore, it was awakening. The message told you that your life had been waiting for this exact moment, this precise second where something powerful inside you finally opened its eyes. It said that a person's life changes the instant they realize they've been living below their potential, not because of circumstances, but because they never challenged themselves to see what they were truly capable of. And as you read on, you felt that truth sink deeper than any inspirational quote ever had. This was different. This wasn't motivation, it was revelation. You weren't just meant to improve your life, you were meant to transform it. The words reminded you that all great transformations begin with honesty. And so the message pushed you toward the kind of honesty that stings at first, you haven't been giving your best. Not because you're lazy, not because you're incapable, but because you've been protecting yourself from the possibility of failure. You've been afraid of seeing your real limits, so you never pushed hard enough to reach them. But the message said something that shook you. Your real limit is far beyond anything you've ever attempted. You weren't even close. You had been walking while your soul was built to run. You had been hiding when your destiny was waiting to be claimed. You had been settling for what was safe when life wanted to see how brave you could be. 17 minutes. You felt your chest tighten in that strange mix of fear and excitement that only comes before a breakthrough. And the message knew exactly what you were feeling. It spoke to you like it understood your inner world. It told you that fear doesn't go away when you grow stronger. Fear goes away when you grow tired of its control. And you were finally, truly tired of being held back by stories that weren't even yours, stories of limitation, of unworthiness, of doubt that someone else planted in you long ago. You saw, maybe for the first time, that courage isn't loud. Courage is the quiet decision to try again tomorrow. Courage is the small step when no one believes in you yet. Courage is looking at your own reflection and choosing to become someone you respect. And as you let these truths settle inside you, you felt a new version of yourself forming, one with steadier hands, clearer vision, deeper resolve. The message told you that transformation isn't an explosion, it's a shift. A slow but undeniable turning of the inner gears. And that shift had already begun for you. You weren't reading the message anymore, you were living inside it. You could feel your old fears losing their grip, your old excuses dissolving, your old boundaries widening. 16 minutes, you felt the weight of your life, not as a burden, but as a responsibility. A beautiful responsibility. The responsibility to use your gifts, your voice, your strength, your time. Not because the world told you to, but because something inside you hungered for meaning far deeper than the surface-level life you'd been tolerating. The message reminded you that you are not here by accident. You're not breathing by accident. You're not dreaming by accident. Every thought you have, every desire that refuses to die, every moment where your heart pulls you towards something greater, these are all proof that your life has purpose written into it, and purpose isn't found. Purpose is revealed when you stop running from yourself. The words spoke of your future as if it were already alive, waiting behind a thin wall of fear. It told you that the life you want is already built, but you have to walk toward it. Step by step. Choice by choice. Day by day. There is no leap. There is only the courage to move, even when the path is unclear. 15 minutes. Something dawned on you then. Time wasn't counting down to an end. Time was counting down to a beginning. A beginning you had been resisting without even realizing it. A beginning that required you to shed the identity that kept you small and rise into the identity you were born to claim. The message insisted that transformation doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts the moment you choose to no longer be the person who holds themselves back. It starts when you say, enough. I am done being less than I can be. And in that moment, something in you truly said it. The message felt almost prophetic in the way it described your potential. It said you were capable of building, achieving, creating, changing, rising in ways that would shock even you. Not because you're special in a way others aren't, but because every human being carries a hidden greatness that only awakens when they are pushed to the edge of themselves. You had been standing far from that edge for too long. But now, reading these words, you had reached it. And instead of fear, you felt something new, possibility. A possibility so immense it felt like standing before a vast horizon, your future stretching out in every direction. 14 minutes, the message began to shift tone, not softer, but deeper. It told you that your life has been trying to get your attention for years. Through moments of dissatisfaction. Through moments of longing. Through that quiet ache in your chest every time you imagined a better version of yourself. It wasn't pain, it was calling you toward your purpose, your growth, your evolution, and now, finally, you were listening, you felt a strange sense of calm fill you. Not the calm of comfort, but the calm of alignment. The calm of knowing you're finally stepping into the flow of the life that was waiting for you all along. 13 minutes. This wasn't a message anymore. This was a turning point. A catalyst. A spark igniting the deepest parts of you. And as you breathed in, you knew you would never be the same again.